Kendrick Lamar just turned the Grammys into a public execution and walked out with his 27th trophy like it was a head on a spike, officially passing Jay-Z and rewriting the GOAT conversation in front of the whole world. Careers didn't just take L's, they got documented. 50 Cent folded, JID got turned into a reaction meme, Lil Wayne low-key admitted the game moved on, and Drake took the quietest L money can't fix. And these dudes really thought they could spin their way out of this? Before we unpack this, subscribe and show support with a like. You're not ready for what's ahead. Kendrick Lamar, K. broke Jay-Z's all-time Grammy record by securing his 27th win off GNX, Not Like Us, and Luther, while the cameras locked in on Curtis 50 Cent Jackson, JID, Lil Wayne, and Aubrey Drake Graham's absence like a crime scene. And this all went down on February 1st, 2026, live at the Grammy Awards broadcast worldwide. 50 really thought repeating "Drake didn't lose anything" was gonna age well. Now let's dig into the receipts that show how this whole night flipped their narratives inside out. Yo, let's open the vault and pull the actual words these dudes put out there, because once you hear them, the Grammys start looking like karma in 4K. First up, 50. In his Vibe interview back in mid-2024, Curtis 50 Cent Jackson went on his Drake defense tour and said, "Drake ain't lose a thing, man. You can't lose when you got 300 million. How you lose with that?" When I heard this, I was like, that's the argument? Bro really reduced the whole cultural war to a bank statement. That's not analysis, that's a groupie flexing another man's pockets. Then on Big Boy's Neighborhood a little later, he doubled down again. Look, the internet go do what it do, but Drake good. He up. Y'all talking about records. I'm talking about real life. That boy rich. He can't take it now. Nah, that line right there is where he fully lost the plot. If he's rich so he can't lose is your stance, you already admitted the music battle is cooked. Now fast forward to after the Grammys, allegedly February 2nd, 2026. 50 Cent slides onto Instagram and posts a simple black and white photo of Kendrick at the podium with the caption, "Congratulations, Kendrick, top of the world." When I saw this, I had a double take. That's it? No, I was wrong. No, Dot went crazy. Not even a fake. Drake's still the boy, though. Just corporate best regards energy from the same dude who built his whole image on loud, petty, pick-a-side violence. Bro went from "I'll say what I want" to "per my last email" in one award show. Now let's talk to JID. In that August 2024 interview that went viral, destined JID Route said on camera, "I want to rap with Dot. Like, let's really rap. I feel like I'm at that point where I can stand next to him. You feel me?" When I heard that, I wasn't even mad. I was like, okay, confidence, I respect it. But the way blogs flipped it into JID is coming for Kendrick's spot, that's where you could already see the setup. Then Grammy night hits. Every time the best rap album and best melodic rap performance categories come up, the cameras cut to JID when Kendrick's name is read. When they announce GNX over his project and zoom in on JID's face, stone cold, slow clap, eyes locked on the stage, that reaction shot says more than a 10-minute interview ever could. Social clips showed him clapping with his heavy, tight smile. People tried to call it humble, but it read like, damn, they really picked him again. Next, Dwayne Michael Carter Jr., Lil Wayne. In late 2024, there were interviews where Wayne got asked about Kendrick mentioning him on GNX. In one clip, he responded, "I mean, yeah, he said my name, that's cool or whatever, but I don't really be listening to all that like that. I'm me, I'm Wayne, I ain't in competition with nobody." When I heard that, I was like, you absolutely heard it and you absolutely feel away. That fake nonchalance was screaming low-key bothered. Then after the Thought Carter 6 is reportedly shut out from Grammy nominations, Wayne jumps on social and posts, "Didn't get nominated, gotta work harder, back to the lab." Everybody in the comments started calling it humble Wayne, but man, read that again knowing his resume. That's not hunger, that's a legend trying to convince himself the door ain't closing. Then in another interview, he compares himself to Bill Belichick, saying something along the lines of, "It's like Belichick, you know? You can be great, you can have all the rings, but they still act like they don't need you no more." When I heard that, I was like, oh yeah, he feels it. That's not just a sports analogy, that's a confession. He sees himself as the genius they treated like outdated software. Now for the ghost in the room, Aubrey Drake Graham. Drizzy's whole Grammy stance goes back years, but in that infamous Instagram story when he started his boycott energy, he wrote, "The Grammys no longer matter to the artists that matter." And in a later interview, he said, "I don't need a Grammy to validate what I do. That system ain't built for us." At first, I was like, talk your talk, I get the frustration. But now with Kendrick getting all the time decorated inside that same building, those quotes start sounding less like rebellion and more like a preemptive excuse. Finally, Token jumps into the fire. On X/Twitter, during or just after the show, Token allegedly tweets, "JID should have won rap album so the Grammys could embrace the future instead of embracing what is already heavily embraced." When I read that, I actually laughed. That's not "I love JID," that's "we tired of Dot winning, please rotate the champion." Bro basically said, "We don't got anybody better, but we bored, pick the other guy." Now that we got the quotes, the posts, and the faces, let's connect these dots for real.
Alright, check this. Because when you line the dates up, the Grammys stop looking random and start looking like a verdict. First, we had the Drake versus Kendrick war in 2024. Not Like Us becoming a cultural earthquake, the West Coast anthem that took over parties, TikTok, the whole summer. While the culture was already leaning Dot, 50 Cent jumps out in that same window trying to run interference. He does Vibe, he does Big Boy, he keeps framing it as y'all broke, Drake rich, hoping the money argument would drown out the music argument. That whole time, Kendrick is silent. No interviews, no explainers, no "I won," just music and then quiet. That silence is important. Then in August 2024, JID's "I Wanna Rap with Dot" clip makes its rounds. You can see labels and blogs start cooking up a narrative. If they can't deny Dot, they'll manufacture a rival, frame it as the future versus the present, even though they're only 4 years apart in age. That's not generational, that's just one guy being more established. Right after that, reports say Wayne is doing press around the Carter 6. Every time Kendrick's name comes up, his energy allegedly shifts. He's not hyped, he's guarded. You could feel that discomfort of a legend who knows there's another legend now with a deeper active run. Then, award season rotates in, nominations drop. Kendrick is on the ballot heavy. GNX, Not Like Us, Luther, Wayne, 0 for the Carter 6. That's crazy when you remember how the Grammys used to treat Wayne like automatic nomination material. That's when those Belichick comparisons start making too much sense. Meanwhile, Drake, who once played the Grammys game like a pro, is now still on boycott mood. That decision might have felt powerful at first, but timeline-wise, it sets up this wild contrast. The guy who bowed out of the institution versus the guy the institution is now crowning. Then, Grammy night hits. Kendrick's name called again and again. The director keeps cutting to JID every time GNX beats his album. Wayne is watching from off stage, posting afterward like a guy left out the group chat. 50 is at home or somewhere watching the scoreboard turn his whole year of Drake defending into a meme. Token's out here subtweeting "Embrace the future" like he's volunteering JID as a sacrifice. And the day after all this, 50 Cent quietly posts, "Congratulations, Kendrick, top of the world." So look at the pattern. 50 talks the loudest before the award cycle locks Dot's dominance in history, then goes respectfully vague the second the hardware proves him wrong. That's the move of someone reading the room late and trying not to look cooked. Wayne shows discomfort when his name gets mentioned next to Kendrick's, then the very building that used to praise him leaves his new album outside in the cold, while it throws Kendrick a coronation. That's not coincidence, that's optics the Academy knows exactly what it's doing with. And Drake? His boycott sits in the background like a time bomb. Once Kendrick becomes the most decorated rapper in Grammy history, that old Grammys don't matter stance flips from rebellion to regret real fast. The timeline turned his protest into self-exile. Token tweeting about the future right in the middle of all this, that's panic. That's the industry and its fringed voices realizing they don't have a believable next up to sell over Kendrick, so they start selling fatigue instead. Any smart person looking at this sequence would have kept their mouths shut, or at least picked their spots. But 50, Wayne, Token, even JID by association, they all made noise at the worst possible times right before the biggest music institution on earth stamped Kendrick's win in gold. But here's where it gets even nastier once you look under the hood.
Now check this out. Nobody's really breaking down how Kendrick used symbolism, timing, and even silence as weapons. This wasn't just he won some awards, this was psychological warfare. The title Luther alone is sneaky. You name a record Luther and you're quietly aligning yourself with Luther Vandross, with black musical royalty, with generational soul. Then that same record crashes the big categories, record of the year level. That's not just another rap win. That's Kendrick stepping into a lineage outside hip-hop, saying, I'm not just your favorite rapper, I'm in the canon of black music overall. While Wayne is out here comparing himself to Belichick, a coach removed from the league, Kendrick's tying his art to legends who get immortalized. The symbolism is crazy. Wayne sees himself as the genius they tossed aside. Kendrick positions himself as the voice they build statues of. And Wayne didn't catch that? That's embarrassing for somebody who prides himself on wordplay and legacy. Look at Not Like Us being treated as some fun West Coast party record, and then allegedly turning into a Grammy magnet. That's wild, because the contents of that song is straight character assassination of Drake. You got a diss track, a full-on dismantling of a global superstar being rewarded by the very institution Drake dismissed. When the Academy validates that song, they're not just saying good beat, they're low-key siding with everything K-Dot implied. The clowning, the questions, the cultural rejection. That's history books energy. And Drake's old quotes about the Grammys not mattering, they age like milk when the same stage is now honoring the track that buried his aura. He thought he stepped away from the table. Kendrick turned the whole table into a plaque. The way GNX went up against JID's project is deeper than just 2 albums on a ballot. Remember JID's I Wanna Rap with Dot line? That set this up as a side-by-side comparison. When GNX wins and the camera cuts to JID's stiff expression, that moment becomes visual shorthand for nice try, kid. The Grammys didn't just reward Kendrick, they used JID's face as the B-roll of defeat. Those still shots that went viral, the slow clap, no smile, that's the internet's new standard reaction for, damn, I thought it was my time. And JID clearly didn't anticipate that. He thought even if he lost, he'd get some future halo. Instead, the optics make him look like a sparring partner getting his bell rung. If he or his team had really read between the lines, they would have never let the media push that "I'm ready to stand next to him" narrative so early. Real talk, the most gangster part of this whole thing is what K-Dot didn't do. No interviews clowning Drake, no public responses to 50, no subs to Wayne, just projects, performances, and then a quiet pull-up to the Grammys. Meanwhile, 50 spent the whole build-up talking numbers, talking L's that supposedly don't count, talking like culture can be bought. Then, after the score gets lit up, 27 Grammys all-time record, his big move is a 6-word caption with no Drake tag. The contrast is crazy. One guy plays chess in silence, the other guy live tweets checkers and then pretends he never picked a side. If 50 had half the strategic awareness Kendrick showed, he wouldn't have to backpedal in front of millions like this. That little phrase, already heavily embraced, is a mask getting ripped off. He's not saying Kendrick ain't good, he's saying, yo, the problem is he's too good, too consistently rewarded, and it makes everybody else look like understudies. The hidden message? We can't beat him musically, we can't deny him statistically, so now we gotta argue that celebrating him is boring. Instead of pushing JID on merit, Token basically begs the Grammys to force parity. That's a participation trophy argument. And if JID fans and Kendrick haters don't see how weak that looks, they're not reading between the lines at all. Now that we've broken down the subliminals and the strategy, let's talk about how the media tried to spin all this and where they fumbled. Look, different outlets are already moving funny with how they frame this night. You got sites like Complex reportedly pushing headlines like Kendrick Lamar makes Grammy history, but fans debate whether it's time to pass the torch. That's that sneaky framing. They give him the flowers in the title, then immediately plan doubt like, has he had enough? Then an outlet like Hot New Hip Hop might lean more into the drama. Kendrick breaks record as JID's reaction goes viral. Fans say the Grammys snubbed the future. See how they censored JID's future energy instead of what the actual Academy vote just told us about the present? They want a controversy more than they want the truth of the scoreboard. You might even see think pieces from more culture critic places, like Vice-type platforms, going, Lil Wayne's humble Grammy response shows growth from hip-hop's former best rapper alive.
That's cute and all, but it erases the context of a legend realizing the room doesn't orbit him anymore. Then there are the Drake defenders online saying stuff like, "None of this matters, he's up 300M," or "Drake doesn't even submit to the Grammys, why are we talking about this?" Those are the same people who spent a decade celebrating his nominations and wins when he was the one racking them up. Suddenly, the trophies don't count the moment they start building another man's statue. Here's why all that spin doesn't hold up. If you say Kendrick is over-rewarded, you're admitting he's consistently delivering at a level the biggest institutions and the streets respect. If you claim JID was snubbed for the future, you're ignoring that the future still has to beat the present on the board, not just in hashtags. If you defend Drake by yelling money after a night where music got celebrated, you're telling on yourself. You stopped talking art because the art isn't on your side. Some 50 Cent fans are out here like, he's just showing love, why y'all reading into it? But those are the same folks who praised him for being a ruthless straight shooter for 20 years. You don't get to call him fearless, then pretend his soft pivot after a historic night is just him being mature. That's selective vision. At the end of the day, the media can try all the narratives they want, but the receipts we just walked through, the interviews, the posts, the timelines, the camera angles, make one thing obvious. This wasn't just a celebration. It was a realignment. But here's what nobody's really saying out loud, and this is where it gets dark.
Here's what nobody is talking about, man. This Grammy night wasn't just about Kendrick Lamar winning and everybody else losing. This was the industry making an official political decision about who gets to be the active GOAT and who gets quietly filed under legacy or denial. All the mainstream takes are soft. Kendrick makes history. Is it time to pass the torch? Wayne shows humility. Drake sits this one out. Nah. Here's the real story. The Grammys just chose Kendrick as the anchor point for how hip-hop history is going to be taught to the next generation. And a lot of these dudes are panicking because they realize they're not the main character in that chapter anymore. Let's start with the politics angle. These award institutions don't just reward talent, they invest in myths. For a long time, Wayne looked like the blueprint myth. Mixtape monster, chart killer, best rapper alive. Then Drake became the global crossover myth, the guy who blended melodies and rap, #1 after #1, face of the streaming era. Kendrick was always the critical darling, Pulitzers, think pieces, voice of a generation talk. But after this night, he's not just the artsy favorite, he's the official historical centerpiece. Most decorated rapper in Grammy history is going to be on every documentary lower third for the next 30 years. That's not politics you can walk back. So when you look at Wayne's Belichick comparison through that lens, it stops being a toot metaphor and becomes a straight-up admission that he knows the league doesn't revolve around him anymore. He's the coach they study, not the one they call the face of the game. He might still be brilliant, but the story the machine wants to tell right now is Kendrick's. And 50? Real talk, 50 Cent has always been less of a fearless bully and more of an industry enforcer. He smells where the power is shifting and talks accordingly. He bet on Drake in the war because he thought corporate dominance and money would eventually erase the fact that culture chose not like us. The forbidden angle here is 50 didn't just misread the battle, he misread which myth the industry wanted to build long term. He tried to sell "you can't lose if you're rich," in an era where people are craving legacy, not just lifestyle. That's why his top of the world caption feels so hollow. It's him signaling to the new power center, hey, I'm on your side now. Don't leave me in the past with the other guys. He looks less like a boss and more like a politician switching parties after an election. Now, look at JID and Token through this same lens. The industry always needs a future to market, because if you admit the present king might just stay king, it exposes how many artists aren't really built to take that spot. JID is insanely talented, that's not even in question, but the way they prematurely framed him as ready to rap with Dot, the heir, all that, wasn't just belief, that was desperation. Token's tweet about embracing the future instead of what's already heavily embraced is the mask slipping. He's basically saying, we can't actually dethrone Kendrick on the mic, so can the institutions please force a new face so it doesn't look like we're all playing for second? That's the forbidden truth. A lot of these future of rap conversations aren't really about nurturing the next great.
They're about escaping the shadow of somebody who's still in his prime while stacking legendary credentials. And then there's Drake, the biggest L in this whole political game, in my opinion. His boycott once looked like a power move, but in his new context, it's self-sabotage. By stepping out of the Grammy arena, he effectively told history, "Don't include me in the official mythology you write about my era." That worked fine when awards seemed out of touch, but once those same awards turned around and fully embraced Kendrick as the definitive rapper of this generation, Drake's absence stops being rebellion and starts being a void. He's not just arguing with Dot now, he's arguing with archives. In 20 years, casual fans aren't going to go back and dig through IG lives and leaked reference tracks to litigate who really won. They're going to see Kendrick, Pulitzer, 27 Grammys, cultural anthems, diss records turned into golden statues. Drake, massive numbers, undeniable influence, but a weird self-chosen gap in the official record where it matters most. That's the psychological warfare K-Dot played without saying a word. He let institutions become part of his discography. Nobody wants to admit it, but that's why Token and others are crying over-embraced. They're not mad at the quality, they're mad that the story is settling in a direction they can't spin. And here's the coldest part of this forbidden take. Lil Wayne, 50 Cent, Drake, even JID, they're all dealing with different versions of the same fear. What if Kendrick Lamar is the last rapper the broader world agrees is undeniably the best at this? For Wayne, that means his best rapper alive decade becomes Act 1, not the whole movie. For 50, it means his power as a cultural bully doesn't land the same when the culture's favorite is someone he can't clown into submission. For Drake, it means he might go down as the biggest pop rap star, but not the definitive rapper of his era. For JID, it means his future tag might always come with an asterisk. Great, but never quite that. So they do what they can. Lil Wayne leans into, "I gotta work harder," to frame the snub as a challenge, not a demotion. 50 plays cordial, hopes people forget he chose the wrong side of the war. Drake stays outside the building, pretending it's beneath him, while that same building chisels Kendrick into stone. Token begs for the future narrative, so the game feels less like a one-man era. That's the truth nobody on the big platforms wants to say. This wasn't just Kendrick's win, it was a public sorting of who's leading, who's lingering, and who's lying to themselves. And that's the part they won't tell you. So, what happens next? Let's talk future.
Here's what's most likely to happen moving forward. Scenario 1, the silent reign. Kendrick Lamar is gonna lean even harder into silence, in selective drops. He's not gonna dance on graves, he's not gonna tweet victory laps. He's gonna let 27 Grammys, most decorated rapper in history, talk for him, while he pops out with occasional surgical features or another album when he feels like it. When that happens, 50 Cent's gonna keep trying to crack little jokey posts about everything except Kendrick, because any direct shot is gonna look delusional next to that resume. JID's gonna have to carry the weight of that reaction meme every time he gets nominated again, with people asking, is this the year he actually beats Dot or not? Wayne will keep grinding, but every new project is gonna get graded against the standard he helped build and Kendrick now owns. This favors K-Dot, because the less he talks, the more everybody else's scrambling looks loud and desperate. The quiet king always wins the long game. Now, if Kendrick decides to spin the block and drop another fully loaded project while the smoke from this Grammy night is still in the air, it's over for any future versus present talk for a long time. Once that happens, 50 Cent is gonna have to re-enter the award space or watch another era-defining project go up without his name anywhere near the same rooms. If he submits, it's a quiet admission that he needs that validation again. If he doesn't, it'll look like he's avoiding scoreboards where he can't control the criteria. Either way, he's gonna look boxed in. JID might drop something crazy and close gap good, but even then, the conversation's gonna be, he finally got close to a Kendrick-level project, not he replaced him. That's a rough lane to live in. In 50, if he tries to pivot into praising Kendrick heavy, it's gonna read like bandwagoning,
If he fires shots, Dot doesn't even have to respond. The streets would clown 50 for shadowboxing a guy whose trophy case already answered. Kendrick wins either way. If he drops, he extends the lead. If he doesn't, the last thing on the board is still that bloodbath Grammy night. Looking at the bigger picture, mark my words, hip-hop documentaries in 10, 15 years are gonna circle this exact moment as the night the game officially crowned Kendrick over everybody else. When that narrative settles, 50 Cent's recent run as Drake's hype man is gonna be remembered as one of his worst reads ever. Fans are gonna look back and say, you really sided with the losing narrative and then tried to clean it up. JID's viral face is gonna live longer than half these think pieces. Every time someone wants to show the moment you realize the game's not yours yet, that clip's getting pulled. Lil Wayne's legacy is still gonna be massive, but this era is gonna mark the transition where people talk about him like they talk about Belichick right now. All-time great, but used to run the league. And Drake? The wildest part is that younger fans who grow up with most decorated rapper equals Kendrick might not even understand why oldest stands fought that idea so hard. To them, the numbers and the narrative are gonna line up perfectly. Kendrick, on the other hand, is gonna sit in that rare air. The artists, the streets, the critics, and the institutions all eventually agreed on. That's the nightmare for a lot of these guys. Not that he's great today, but that he's gonna stay the reference point they can't get under. Whatever happens, one thing's clear. Drake, 50, JID, and Lil Wayne already lost this particular war of perception. Thanks for watching till the end. If you enjoyed digging into the real details, show some love with a like and subscribe for more deep dives like this. Turn on the bell and click one of the videos here. The next reveal is worth your time.